Hello everyone and welcome to episode 23 of Zion's Finest. This is Kenny Brown. This episode is going to be releasing on Monday, November 20th, which for those of you in the United States or for those who celebrate outside of the United States, it is the Monday before Thanksgiving, which is happening on Thursday, November 23rd. So what we did was we gathered at my house on Friday. This last Friday, me, Matt, Scott, and Curtis, and we played just like a bunch of games. Curtis played 4 games in this night. And because of the holidays and how our schedules are going to be working out, what we decided to do was play a bunch of games, and then we were going to record 2 podcast episodes. So we recorded one, which you're going to be hearing now, and then the next one we'll be releasing the week after Thanksgiving. So I know that with Thanksgiving and as the holidays are coming up, everything mega slows down for people. And so obviously I have no illusions or pretensions about people's activity levels in terms of playing Shatterpoint or anything like that. But in order to keep the train moving, we decided to make sure that we were going to be recorded. We thought about taking the week off or 2 weeks off or something like that with the holidays, but we decided, we can do this. So we recorded 2. By the time we started, though, I will just say it was a little bit late, so we get a little bit tired, a little bit delirious, but we had a lot of fun. The announcements that I've got, first off, Cody on the Slack wanted to get a shout out for a tournament that is going to be happening on Saturday, December 16th in Reno, Nevada. It is happening at Game Castle. The time is starting at 11:30, and the cost for the event is going to be $20. It's going to be a showdown event consisting of 3 rounds, each lasting 2 hours, and going to mission critical at 90 minutes. So if you are in the Northern Nevada, Northern California area, or you are making it out to Reno, this sounds like it's going to be a really awesome event. Cody wanted me to make sure I got the shout out for the podcast or for the tournament on the podcast. So there it is, Cody. I hope you have a really good event. I actually lived in Northern California for a little while, and we would always, my gramps did mining reclamation work in Lake Shasta, and we would drive past Reno all the time. We stopped very few times, but I've been there a bunch. So anyway, that's it. I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving if you are celebrating it. I hope you have a glorious, joyful time with your family and friends, and that you get yourself stuffed up on turkey and on all of the sweets and goodies, and that everyone just has so much fun. If you're able to get some Shatterpoint games in, do it. I wanted to let you know, so I haven't been pushing the poll as much recently, but I'd like to start doing that again, so please make sure that you fill out, if you're listening on Spotify, fill out the poll that we've got. One thing was that we did an episode 21 was me and Sam talking about how to break down, kind of play against Vader Grievous. And our poll question was, who's your favorite control piece? And the possible answers were Dooku, Ahsoka, Mama T, Obi-2, and Jango. And Mama T and Dooku, that doesn't super surprise me, were the ones who got the most votes. So if you haven't played Dooku, you should, because he is, in my opinion, probably the best all-around primary in the game. And I know that's kind of hard to say because Vader's so good, but Dooku's just doing something very different and is extremely flexible. So you should try Dooku. And Mama T I will say that Mama T is just an absolutely incredible and an absolutely incredibly fun figure to play. So go try them out. If you haven't played Dooku Ahsoka yet, or I played Dooku Lumi. So I played a Dooku Ahsoka a lot, and then I subbed out Ahsoka for Lumi, and that was also super fun. We're actually going to be talking about it here in this episode. But after you listen to this episode, if you could fill out our poll question, that would be super awesome. Like and subscribe to the podcast. Please make sure that if you listen on YouTube, that you give it a thumbs up there. Join the Slack, have a ton of fun with us, and have an awesome Thanksgiving. Thanks, everyone. Hello, and welcome to episode 23 of Zion's Finest. Happy Thanksgiving. This is Kenny Brown, and I am joined by a band of brothers, Scott.
Hello.
Matt.
Howdy.
And Curtis Sorensen.
Hello.
Curtis is from the Logan scene, and he plays tons of games with us. And we're at my house right now. We are recording in person.
For those of you who don't know, Logan is a city in Utah.
That is true. It is north of us about an hour. So we are releasing this episode the week of Thanksgiving. For those of you in the United States or are expats like Michael Burrows out in China. I don't know if you're American. assume
He
you are.
just said he was an expat. That doesn't mean...
That's true.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So, Michael Burrows, if you're an American, happy Thanksgiving.
If you're British, we're so sorry for calling you American.
That's fair. That is fair.
And also, you don't get to celebrate Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Also
Yeah. It's like, we're sorry for calling you American because you couldn't be so lucky.
Yeah.
USA.
Also, I really hope that everyone has a good Thanksgiving. The holidays are a wonderful and complicated time, and I don't know. I love the holidays, but obviously, I really hope that everyone has a good Thanksgiving and that you have somewhere to go. These episodes are going to be a little bit rapid fire because we are going to be recording 2 episodes tonight, and it is 11:20. The reason why we're recording 2 episodes and it's 11:20 is because we all got together to play a game, which for some turned into 2, and for some turned into 3, and for one of us turned into 4 games. So let's do recent games right now, and what we're actually going to do is, Curtis, let's start with you. So Curtis played 4 games tonight.
Yes.
But let's do you don't need to give us all, because Curtis plays a lot of Shatterpoint. So just give us your recent game summary. What have you been playing? What have you been enjoying?
Well, tonight I gave a shot to Mace Windu with Anakin. I saw someone post about on the Slack that they were running it, so we thought we would give it a try. You get lots of force, which turns out is everything that Anakin needs. So
Yep.
I had a lot of fun with it.
So obviously you were running very standard pawns, Rex, Arfs, 501st was the idea.
Correct.
So tell me what your general how did it feel? Like, how did the list feel?
It felt fine overall. I would say that your order activation in your deck matters very heavily, which unfortunately is nothing you can control.
Yeah.
Welcome to Republic.
Yeah, this is, I think, the problem with the Republic is if their order activation sequences in the right way, they can do really powerful things. But like in our second game, Mace never activated.
Yeah, he just sat in the spawn and the game was over very quickly.
Yeah, because like if Mace can't get up, giving that steadfast protection bubble and projecting threat. Mace projects so much threat, then you're just a sad panda bear. So
Correct.
So what did you play? So you played Republic in our games. What did you play versus Scott?
I did that same Republic list, and I had about the same result playing that against you.
Yeah.
Mace also did not go in that game.
Ooh.
And
So bad.
similar things happened, and it was a very quick game.
And what was your last game? What did you play?
I played Darth Vader, and then with Darth Vader, we had Django and the ARF Troopers.
Okay.
And we had Count Dooku, Barriss, and the Magna Guards.
Okay, so this is Morgan Reed's half of his. I don't know if you know this, but Morgan Reed in the TTS League was running that. That was his 2 of his 4 lists. How did that feel?
It felt really good.
So you don't have LB2.
No. And that is the downside, because I feel like I had force the entire game. I couldn't spend it fast enough.
Yeah, you got 8 force, and Dooku is not. Dooku and Magnus aren't using any of it. Barriss is. I mean, Barriss can soak up a lot, but even
Barriss
still,
can spend.
Yeah, she could spend, right?
Not
But it's
enough.
Vader is only spending 1. Did you like the list?
I loved the list. It was a lot of fun. I am not as familiar with Barriss. I have not used her a whole lot, so that was a good learning experience on the things that she can do.
Okay. Yeah, I am super excited to try this list out. Scott, tell us about your recent games.
Cool. So I'll just talk. So I had 3 games tonight. One against Matt and 2 against Chris. Against Matt, what did I run against you, Matt? I think I ran Padme Dooku.
Yep.
Because I've thought about this for a while. So it was Padme with her box, and then Dooku, Django, Magna Guards.
The best squad in the game.
Maybe.
No, it's the best.
Definitely assault. I mean, Dooku, Magnus, Django. Django's doing a ton of work.
Yep.
I found that Padme, I really like Padme. I really like her box. I like what they do. I just feel that she needs your other squad to have some level of Grand Republic to really leverage what she's doing.
Yeah.
Because if she's only getting to do her royal command to herself, handmaidens, or Sabe, you are missing out a little bit on the flexibility.
That's her advance, right? Is that what you're
Yeah,
talking about?
that's where she can order all the characters in a unit to advance. Yeah, so you can...
But it has to be Galactic Republic.
It has to be Galactic Republic.
Yeah.
She gives Galactic Republic extra dice, and all of them sort of have a synergy where even their coordinated fire is only if another Galactic Republic is shooting, and so it sort of felt like I was running 2 squads that were just sort of running independent of each other.
Yeah.
And that was fine. Man, I had a very close game.
Yeah.
I was able to pull it out in the end, but it was a super close, super tight game. It went to all three struggles, and I think the third struggle I think was just hard positioning wise for Matt to come back from.
Yeah.
And so if it had been a different mission,
Yeah.
it very well could have gone the other way.
And what did you play in your games against Curtis?
So I just ran the same list because I really am trying to figure this out because we ranked Grand Inquisitor very low in our ranking. So I am trying out what I consider what would be half of a premier list, which was Vader, Rex, Arfs,
Okay.
Grand Inquisitor, Obi-2, and Fifth Brother.
That is a really interesting
So
premier build.
because one of our arguments we made about Grand Inquisitor is that Grand Inquisitor, hypothetically, is just a little worse than Grievous in the sense that his damage isn't as good.
Yep.
His defense is actually much better.
His defense is better.
His defense is much better.
Yep.
He just doesn't have the damage, and he doesn't have the mobility.
Yeah.
He does get to give someone else a dash, but it's limited in who he can give it to, which is, to be fair, the same for Grievous.
Yeah.
But he also gives himself a dash.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have the ability to advance for a force or do any sort of jump.
Yeah.
And so he falls behind that way. And his ability, his global ability, is arguably better than Grievous's. It's very similar because with Grievous, if Grievous wounds someone,
He heals.
he heals. And if it's a force user, he gets back force.
Yep.
With Grand Inquisitor, that is the same for him.
Okay.
Except it's if any Inquisitor does it,
Okay.
then any Inquisitor can heal.
That's really
so
cool.
your Fifth Brother, Vader, can heal someone, and then the Grand Inquisitor could heal.
Yeah, that is cool.
So that flexibility allows you to play around a lot. I really like that ability, especially because it gives Vader the ability to take 2 damage to wound someone, and then he can just heal it.
Yeah.
So it takes away that edge there.
That's a really cool, that's a very cool list building idea.
Yeah. So I think the synergy works. I think it's a really solid list for Premier.
Yeah.
It's not as good as Vader Grievous.
Sure.
And it's just not going to be.
Yeah.
But I think in a Premier list, it actually, especially if you're doing something different with Grievous to pair him with Dooku, I think it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can also just run Vader Grievous and then also have a second list that's the Inquisitor list.
Yeah.
And then you pair both with Vader.
Yeah, the problem is that if you're pairing Vader Grievous, you're taking Obi-2 and Magnas with Vader.
You have to make some sacrifices for sure.
Yeah. So you're sacrificing on one end, and I feel like with Grand Inquisitor, he has to be the one to take Fifth Brother and Obi-2. Yeah. Otherwise, he just doesn't make it. Like, Vader can deal with having something less optimal, which is why I think take Rex and Arfs.
That's a really cool idea.
But, Grand Inquisitor. So, not optimal, but I think Grand Inquisitor just kind of what we talked about. I maybe would, if we revisited our tier list, I might up him to C. Yeah. Because I feel like we only ranked him low because he was limited by his other components. And so I'd call him very niche, which I believe was our criteria for C.
Yeah. I mean, like Anakin, right? It's like a similar thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, Matt, tell us about your games.
Yeah, so tonight I mostly wanted to experiment with Mother Talzin, who is a
Mama T.
Night Sisters I have not really played at all before. And I've been thinking about her within the context of the new mission.
Yep.
And how that changes things.
Oh, wait. Pause. Did everyone play Sabotage Showdown tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so all of our games tonight, just FYI, were on Sabotage Showdown, which I love as a mission, by the way.
So the list that I ran was the Talzin box, just top to bottom, Talzin, Savage, and Night Sisters. And then paired that with Asajj, Aura, and Magna Guards.
Yep.
And I was doing some theory crafting about this. Aura, I think actually, this is maybe the best possible place for her, but I think that Jango is just better, even if you're playing a point down.
Yeah.
But the theory that I had there was, hey, if she can make herself a Night Sister, if she can be making multiple small attacks that are going to push people from range 5, especially in Sabotage Showdown, that can be really impactful.
Yes.
And because of her ability to deal damage to a unit that is engaged with the target that she is shooting.
Yes.
Savage, as a potato who just mostly stands on points and absorbs damage, is great for that.
That's a great point.
The thing that I realized kind of for the first time is that ability of hers is innate. And so you can actually trigger it twice if you are doing 2 attacks in her activation with that, which is unique. So she can do work. I think that the thing about Aura, for the most part, is that you have to look at her as a displacement and mobility piece and not as a damage piece.
Yeah.
And the problem, of course, is that Django is just better at doing both of those things and also does more damage.
Yeah, exactly.
The other main thought about this is I've been trying to figure out how to get Asajj to work, and bringing her allows you to take Magna Guards with a little bit more mobility.
Yes.
And then because she has the double Separatist Dathomir
Yep.
synergy. So I was expecting it to be bad, but maybe have some potential. I think it did better than I was expecting.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's potential there, especially if you just swap out for Django and run a point down.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so crazy.
Asajj is really, really interesting because if you're willing to spend a lot of force, she can do a ton of work.
Yep.
In my first game against Scott, she had 2 activations. She did not attack in either one.
Yeah.
In both cases, she was spending 3 to 4 force to move around and do a force push.
Yep.
But in both cases, she was flipping points. In one case, she actually flipped 2.
Yeah.
Because she force pushed somebody off of one and then moved to another.
Yep.
And so she can do a lot of work that way. She can also just kind of eat dirt and take a lot of damage and really struggle.
Yeah.
But I think that she really shines as a kind of lone striker. And so the strategy that I like with the new mission is that you push really hard to one side.
Yeah.
And I think if you send Asajj by herself the other way, she can be very difficult, like Ahsoka, where your opponent has to, especially if she's second to the point, your opponent has to invest more bodies to deal with her than you are on that side.
Yeah.
So I was really pleasantly surprised. I lost both games. They were both super
close.
grindy, close games.
Yes. Tell me about this. Why is it? I know you've played it. Haven't you played Asajj Dooku?
No.
I don't, because I know, I am sure that this has been done, but it's not clear to me. I love that Mama T is bringing the Dathomirian's energy, and Mama T is an incredible figure.
Yep.
I mean, every time I play with her, or play against her, she is just amazing. It's not clear to me why Asajj and Dooku doesn't go well together.
So I think that it does fine, but I think that the tricky thing about that situation is that so Asajj Dooku is great, but it is very much a displacement focused list.
Yes.
And I think that there are just better things to do with Dooku.
Yeah.
I think that if you pair Grievous there, you get to do a lot of damage while also displacing people.
That's fair.
If you pair Vader there, so it's one of those things where I think it's hard for her to find a home. I think that she works better than we had anticipated with Talzin, just because the dual synergy there.
Yeah.
Like allowing you to bring Magna Guards who are busted.
Yeah.
And allowing you to do some things where you're kind of, the rest of your list is really grinding it out on damage, and you're getting a bunch of free attacks, free pushes from Talzin.
Yeah.
And then Asajj is just kind of, especially in the late game, she is just an ace in the whole piece that can move to just about anywhere on the map and can flip a point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and can guarantee it.
Yeah.
So I want to test with it more. I think it's a very finesse-oriented list for sure. But I think there's potential there.
Yeah. I played 3 games tonight. I played Vader Dooku, and it was just Vader, Rex, Arfs. We got to come up with, like, Vader Republic is like, that's that list.
Yeah.
Vader, Rex, Arfs. And then Dooku. And Curtis and I played 2 games. The first game, I won Struggle 1 super fast, and then Curtis grinded out 2 hardcore victories in Struggles 2 and Struggle 3. It was really, those are some awesome games. I mean, well, they were very awesome games. And I didn't, this is my first time playing Dooku Vader, and I am very used to playing Dooku as just like a hyper control piece, and that's not what you need to do. If you've got Vader on your team, like, you press up and you go kill people and take damage and roll dice. So I didn't play it super well, and Curtis did a really good job of kind of controlling the tempo of, because I thought I was doing pretty well in Struggle 2, but you just ground down my advantage and then took back over.
I was very nervous after the way that Struggle 1 went, because like you said, you took that very quickly.
It was super fast.
Like I mentioned, when Mace is in the back and he doesn't go, it sucks. But once he gets up there and he's scrumming, he changes the entire game.
Yeah, Mace is so good. He's just like the exact kind of hyper carry that you want. And then, so we played 2 games, and the second game I was a little lopsided. Like I think it was over in like 6 activations, right?
It was. The same thing happened in Struggle 1.
Yeah.
The difference was Mace didn't come up until the very last. Actually,
he never
did activate.
Yeah.
The game was over before Mace even activated.
Yeah, it was insane. Then my third game, I played Justin's list. Well, I played Dooku, Lumi. Instead of doing soups, I did B2s. Because I think B2s with Dooku are super good. And Matt and I played this insane game. It was such an insane scrum. I mean, the MVPs were Mama T,
Townsend, yeah.
and Django, of course, right?
Yeah.
And so
Django's busted.
because Django's busted, and so it was really, really interesting. I was impressed with Lumi. So Lumi's not good, but what Lumi does do is her ability when your guys are wounded, and when you wound. So when guys are wounded, you heal 3, which is awesome, and when you wound, you get to perform a dash. Now, that ability sucks with the Republic because all of your guys get one shot, and it is very tough to... You're not doing enough damage to be consistently dashing. However, with Dooku, so if you've got Django, Magnas, B2s, Obi's not doing a ton, but like you're doing a lot of... Like, we had a lot of wounds, and all those dashes are wild. Right?
Yeah, that is the saving grace for Lumi. You could really care less about the heal 3 most of the time. It's like, okay, sometimes it'll be really nice.
Yeah, I never used it. Right.
Yeah, but it is far more situational. But there is never a time when something in your list dashing isn't good for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that the thing that is crazy about the Dooku Lumi combo in particular, especially in our game, is that against a displacement style list,
this
like
is
what I was
an
running,
important caveat.
The heal from Luminara is insane. Like you easily heal double digits worth of damage in that game.
Oh, easy.
Like if you had not had that heal, I would have just pushed you out of that game on attrition real fast. Yeah. Because like you healed like I think at least 8 damage on Django.
Oh no, I mean, so Matt, you did 5 wounds. You did 6, 7. You did 7 wounds. So I healed 21 damage.
21 damage, which is crazy.
That is crazy. And I also healed 4 with Obi-Wan with his attack.
And so it's
I healed 25 damage
because both Dooku and Lumi give you a reward when your units get wounded.
Yep.
And Django and Lumi give you a reward when Django specifically or anyone wounds back.
Yeah.
It's just really hard to like. There are some positioning issues that can crop up.
Yeah.
And then I think against the heal is certainly less useful against a more aggro damage, like I'm just going to one-shot your dudes kind of approach.
Yeah.
I also think that Lumi is a lot stronger on Sabotage Showdown because the map naturally forces you to split your forces up more. And with that donut hole in the middle, it's a lot harder for you to focus fire down units. Yeah. Because sometimes you're just fighting on the other side of the board.
Yeah. It was really... Our game was crazy because, I mean, you wounded Dooku. I mean, the expose off of the Night Sisters was just...
Phenomenal.
Absolutely phenomenal. But what I think is that I think Lumi is really good if you're not going into aggro. Mm-hmm. Lumi's awesome, right? Because if you've got durable units like Django, Dooku, Magnas, Obi-2... B2s, they're all durable units, so it's very hard to one-shot them. And if you're not running into aggro, it is very tough. Like, it's very tough for Matt to overcome just like that damage, that damage attrition. I don't think it's very good into aggro. I think if it's aggro, you want Ahsoka, right? Because you want someone I can take your spike, right?
Yeah. Well, in your guys' matchup, with the exception of Soups for B2s, was the game Justin and I played.
Oh, yeah.
And I had Asajj. You did not have Asajj.
That's true. Yeah. I had Maul.
But our list. We were running our list.
And it's interesting to see how Luminara's... It's just if you're running a list that has a lot of displacement or has the ability to just push people off, Luminara just says, too bad, sucker.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to wound your guy, and then I'm going to go move my person, and I'm going to take points from you, and it's going to suck.
Yeah. I mean, the ability when you are wounding or being wounded to have... response is just really strong. So Justin, if you're listening, it is a very cool list. I think that into certain matchups, I think it's absolutely better. I think into Vader Grievous, there's no way I'm running Lumi because she's just going to die, right? Yeah. And you need to have people that you can push forward, right? And so anyway, it was very cool. Okay, so now what we're going to do in honor of Thanksgiving is we are going to each go round the board and we are going to talk about something, our most favorite thing about Shatterpoint. And we are going to start with Scott. Scott, take it away.
Cool. So I went something a little different than like a game aspect, so much as the thing that I am most thankful for.
There we go.
Since that's why you...
I said it was favorite. You're the one injecting thanks into it.
You literally just mentioned Thanksgiving in honor of Thanksgiving.
But I also said this is our favorite thing. But you know what, Scott? If you want to talk about it, let's talk about what we're thankful for. I'm thankful for you.
I'd like to point out, if anyone is currently in counseling, that was an example of gaslighting. So my favorite thing about Shatterpoint is the models. Yeah. Especially coming from Imperial Assault, which was on a 28 millimeter scale. These are 38 or 40 millimeter, I believe. And being able to, one, with the exception of the droids, they're very easy and pleasant to assemble.
Yes.
With the droids,
With that huge caveat.
the droids can burn in hell.
Yes.
They're really great sculpts.
Yes.
They're really interesting to look at. They're kind of a joy to paint, most of them.
If you're good at them. If you're good at painting.
Well, even if you're bad at painting, some of them just... Honestly, this is something counter to... I told this to Matt once, because he was like, oh, I don't really want to... We're talking about some larger piece he was nervous about building. He's like, I don't know if I want to paint... Like, I'm kind of nervous. And I'm like, no. Painting the big things is good.
Yeah.
Because it's actually quite... It's easier.
Yeah.
You get to kind of flex a little bit.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Painting a face that's the size of your thumb is a lot easier than painting a face that's the size of, like...
Yeah. These
Luminara.
faces. Yeah, Luminara.
Yeah, like, just tiny little thing. And so having the bigger things lets you experiment more with painting and lets you get a better grasp of it. So, and honestly, like, I don't really play Warhammer, but I do have Warhammer armies because I just like to paint, and that's
Scott
what I
is
do.
super into the hobby aspect of things.
And so, honestly, I wouldn't buy into the game if I wasn't going to play it, but I do get a lot of satisfaction just out of the painting. And in our Slack channel and painting, I am very... That's probably the channel I interact with the most, honestly, other than our admin channel.
That's so funny.
Just because...
I mean, that's where you are at.
That's where I like to be at. So that's my favorite thing.
Okay, Matt, take it away.
Well, raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens are a few of my favorite things. But if we're talking Shatterpoint specifically, I have to go with random activation order.
Okay.
So I think it was a very controversial part of the design in a lot of ways. I know that people often like to have a lot more control. However, one of the things that I love about Shatterpoint is that the whole design from top to bottom is built around this idea of tactical responses to an ever-changing battlefield.
Yeah.
I was a fairly casual Marvel Crisis Protocol player in a lot of ways, but one of the things that happens in that game, because you get to choose the order of your activations, there's a lot of discussion into turn one plays.
Yep.
And overwhelmingly, the things that have been the problem in the game have been when players are able to map out a round one or a turn one line of play that is just that they can do consistently every single time on a particular objective set, and then just roll that out and really and have a huge impact on the game.
Yes.
There are objectives that have been banned because it was a problem. There are tactics cards that have been banned. Like
this was like that super flyability or whatever, right?
Yeah. I mean, there have been several situations where it was just like, oh, this objective is too ripe for abuse for a team that is trying to kind of game the system, so we got to deal with that.
Okay.
And what I love about Shatterpoint is that you're constantly having to adapt. And I think that while that lack of control can feel frustrating, it is a different kind of skill testing, which we talked about at length in a previous episode.
Yeah.
But it also injects so much life and variety into the game.
Absolutely.
Because it means that every single game is presenting a different kind of challenges. You don't get into some of the chess problem where you have to memorize like dozens and dozens of sequenced opening moves to get to a place where the game actually becomes interesting, where both players are adapting.
Yep.
So I think it adds so much to the game. And it's...
I mean, I think it's really interesting because Imperial Assault, which we played a lot, was very much chess-like in its open. Like we had all of our lists. We had played the game hundreds of times, and I knew playing the box. Okay, these are the things I'm going to do. I'm going to move Gideon to here. I'm going to move C-3PO to here. I'm forming up this box, and it wasn't until turn 12, right, that like, okay, now we are entering into interesting lines of play, right? And so, and it's really interesting because I don't know MCP very well, but like X-Wing, it's really interesting, like if X-Wing had to do random activation order, I mean, that actually kind of fundamentally defeats the purpose of the game, which is based on like pilot and initiative order, but it's just like it's
a different design.
It is a different design.
Yeah, MCP, you are choosing who to activate.
Yes.
But it's certainly not a chess. It's a lot more of... It's very similar to Shatterpoint in the idea of you're trying to capitalize on opportunity.
Yeah.
The difference is that you have more choice.
Yeah.
Because really in Shatterpoint, the decision you're making is, do I go with my reserve?
Yes.
Or do I take the shot?
Yes.
Or do I reserve this and take a shot?
Yeah.
And then who do I activate with my Shatterpoint?
Yep.
Which are meaningful decisions that I always appreciate.
Yeah.
I found that I was really negative about the random piece until I started playing stuff that didn't have activations that seemed worthless.
Yes.
So when I stop playing with the 501st?
Yeah, exactly. Right. When you're not playing the Republic and all of your activations can be high impact, then you're able to kind of see how it's interesting to have like, random activation order where you're like, if I draw the 501st, I lose. Oh, there's the 501st.
Well, I got the 501st. Well, I'll reserve it. Oh, I got the 212.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think it is still the case that there are plenty of instances, regardless of what list you're playing, where like, yeah, sometimes you can pull into a bad draw, and you have to decide, how do I make the best of that?
Yeah.
Or can I reserve or do that kind of a thing?
Yeah.
But the big difference is that in something like Marvel Crisis Protocol, every unit on both sides of the table is going to activate once, and then you score. Shatterpoint, you are scoring every single turn.
Yeah, sure.
And so that creates this dynamic where every single turn matters, where tempo and like you can't really do that thing where you're holding a piece back in reserve to counter or to block a particular play.
Yep.
Because it's just too difficult to predict what's going to happen. And I think that adds so much to the game.
It does. The thing I love asking is to ask, I flip a card, I don't have anything in reserve, and the question is this the worst activation I can have right now? Right? Like, that's my question. It's like, if the answer is no, then I look at my stack. Curtis, we were playing in our first game, I pulled, I think, Arfs, and I said, the only worst activation here is Rex. And then I pulled Rex.
Yep.
So I put him in reserve, and I pulled Rex. And that's fun, because it's like, you're trying to have to ask yourself, what can I respond to? What can I do? And then even still, you're like, well, that's kind of, those are the breaks.
One of the interesting things, Matt, that you brought up, that I do not disagree with you in the essence of what you were talking about, but I want to add to it in a way that is maybe contrary, which is I actually do think there is an interesting point of reserving, holding something back.
As your hold
because
back.
you can reserve something. There have been times when my opponents reserve something and go, oh, well, I can't, because there's an idea of like, oh, I'm going to go push Talzin off. Oh, but Matt Shatterpointed her. This happened in our game.
Yeah.
And so, she's still out here.
Yep.
Right? Or if you've reserved her, it's like, well, I can push this person off. They'll just go with them and push me back.
Yeah.
And so I maybe need to hold off on doing this, and so I'll reserve the unit that I do with that. And so there is a little bit of, one, holding off what you want to do, but also being cognizant of what your opponent's reserving as a form of...
Yeah, I think the benefit is that it's much more limited.
Yeah.
And so you cannot have a consistent game plan where you say like, okay, I'm just
going to stays back.
Yeah, I'm just going to wait, and this is my last activating character, and then they're going to have a big blowout as the last activation of the round, and then I can score.
What I really love about this game versus Imperial Assault, for those of you who don't know, Imperial Assault, you scored points for killing enemy units.
Yes.
And
that was a big source of
points. And you had objectives, but they kind of got ignored in favor of just killing your opponent's units. And so if you had like a big queen piece that was going, if you're your Vader or your Han Solo or your IG-88, you just held them to the end so that you could maximize your ability to utilize their attack. In this game, I remember I always thought, because we always thought, oh, well, hold off on your big people for later. That's kind of how we started playing this game at the beginning. And the other day I had a game where I pulled Vader first, and I was like, I don't feel like reserving. Yeah. So I just camped Vader up in the middle. Yeah. Held the point.
He's a durable body.
And it just worked out. Yeah. Because you don't have to fight all the time. You don't have to be doing a ton of damage. Obviously, damage is an important part of certain lists. Yeah. But...
to make a point, in me and Scott's game, his fifth brother had 2 activations, and it did not attack once. Yeah. All he did was jump onto a point, displace everything, and take that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I think that component of the game is just incredible.
And in our game, Curtis moved up and said, well, I want to take a point and hit Grand Inquisitor, but hitting Grand Inquisitor meant he was too far away from the point. Yeah. And we even discussed, I was like, oh, maybe you just want to take the point because it's guaranteed. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, you didn't wound Grand Inquisitor or take the point. Yeah. So sometimes opting not to fight is the right answer.
Yeah, I do love, I think the random activation is a key component that really enriches the game.
Yeah, instead of building an optimal machine and then piloting that machine optimally, you are saying, I'm bringing a toolbox. Yep. And I am trying to leverage all of those tools into situations that are put in front of me.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, Curtis, what is your most favorite thing about Shatterpoint?
My favorite thing about Shatterpoint is the faction flexibility. Yeah. The fact that I can go and ship Obi with Asajj, and they can go beat people up together. Yeah. Just like they did in Maul and Savage in the Clone Wars series. You can reenact all sorts of cool battles with all the different characters.
Yeah.
It is a great part of the game that I'm not tied to good guys versus bad guys.
Yeah. Do you not think that thematically, do you think that it's okay that Vader's best pairing is with Obi-2? Does that not bother you?
What bothers me is that Vader's best pairing, or not that Vader's best pairing. My problem is that everything else's best pairing is Vader. That is what bothers me.
Vader being in the Galactic Republic is a little iffy.
Yeah. He should have a different tag. I get that something has to be the best figure,
Yeah.
and it makes sense that Vader is that thing.
Yeah.
Like, if they made a good Jar Jar, I'd probably be a lot more upset about that than I am Vader.
An excellent point.
Can you imagine?
I would feel a lot worse about Vader having the Galactic Republic tag if it was not the case that he is best on the table paired with Separatists.
Yeah, that's also a great point.
Honestly, the Galactic Republic needs some help, so maybe give him more tag.
Yeah.
Make him a clone, too.
I mean, you can make an argument that Vader did/does serve the interests of the Galactic Republic.
He did.
But the Separatists, he was never on their team.
Matt, now that's not true, because he has brought peace and stability to his new empire.
It's good. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, but there was still like an hour when he was,
There was an hour while he was killing children.
and the separatist leaders.
Yes.
Right? Like
In the name of the Republic.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. It's so interesting, too, when we think about faction flexibility.
Yeah.
Because there is this really... I do not envy the game designers.
Yeah.
Because you have this horrible sort of push and pull between... If we let everything go with everything, people will just run the best stuff.
Yes.
And we do see that.
Yes.
But if you limit everything by faction, then some factions just don't get played.
Exactly.
And people don't get to run the things that they really like.
Yep.
And you don't want that either. So I generally prefer the way that Shatterpoint MCP has done it,
Agreed.
which is bring whatever you want,
Yeah.
but we're going to incentivize synergy.
Agreed. That is because MCP, I know you have leaders or something in a squad.
So you have leadership abilities and you have affiliations.
Yeah,
So, for example,
affiliations. That's
Captain America has an ability for the Avengers.
Yep.
And there's a card and there's a resource online that tells you every character who is a member of the Avengers.
Yep.
If your squad that you build, when you actually go and take them into the field, you need to have 51% or greater of that list be in that affiliation, then you gain access to the leadership ability.
Okay.
So nobody ever runs unaffiliated.
Okay,
It's just not a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Because the leadership abilities are very powerful
Yep.
and very impactful. So I think that MCP actually does a better job of incentivizing it because as we've kind of seen, certain synergies are more important than others.
Yeah.
And not all synergies are applied evenly.
Yeah.
In the sense that there are a lot of characters who only Galactic Republic benefits or only Separatist benefit. And then there's, if you have a melee attack, all of you.
Yeah.
Vader is kind of like the Oprah of Shatterpoint.
Yeah.
You get 3 dice. You get 3 dice. You get 3 dice.
I think what's interesting is that I think with the exception of clones, everything else is kind of meant to be synergistic within its box, right?
Mm-hmm.
Separatists are actually also a little bit different. I mean, because I think it was kind of clear that what they wanted to do is they wanted to release clones and droids as these two major
Kind of
army
pillars,
components,
yeah.
right? The kind of pillars. But then everything else that they have released has kind of been meant to be, so like Handmaidens is a perfect example. Handmaidens are obviously synergistic with other Republic figures, but it's like when you're bringing...
They clearly have large sets of synergies where they're thinking about it as this is a faction.
Yes.
And then they have smaller sets of synergies where it's like this is a squad
Within
that
the
will maybe pair better with some things or others.
Yeah, exactly.
That is one of the things that I'm most excited looking to the future.
Yeah.
Is these synergies, in theory, as sets come out, will just get better and better.
Yeah.
And that might help us see a bit more balance as they put... I mean, it's hard when Vader does get to go with anything good in melee.
Yeah.
But hopefully some of those other synergies will help to balance that out as they get more pieces that, well, synergize together.
Yeah, I would not at all be surprised to think if Vader's ability becomes a little bit more faction locked, like an Inquisitorius, right? Only an Inquisitorius figure, and that instantly totally changes the game, and I think for the better, really, and because now Vader, I do think that it is appropriate that Vader is the strongest figure in the game, right? Yeah. He does so much, and that's awesome. You need
Primary.
Strong.
Don't say
Good
that
point.
in front of Django.
Good point. Yeah, right. Django is, yes.
So
correct.
I mean, this is maybe a tangent. My theory crafting about what I think happens with Vader down the road is that as I think we see other eras start to get built out, I think they maybe move Vader out of the fall of the Jedi era, so that he's then playing with more later shifted stuff, so that you can't pair him directly with some of the Separatist things, with some of the early Republic things that make less thematic sense.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think that if that's the case, that's why I think just making his ability only affect Inquisitorius just does that, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so, I don't know, obviously, but, like, that's kind of
the interesting thing is that you have, in some ways, if you're not going to faction lock, I agree with Matt. I think era locking is the way to go.
Agreed.
I think you could say Anakin is... We have eras. Every character gets an era.
That's a cool way to say it.
So you've got Anakin in the Clone Wars. You've got Jedi Hunter Vader for the sort of in between 20 years.
Yeah.
And then you've got Galactic Civil War era Vader, who we're going to be getting here.
Yep.
And they really shouldn't be interacting in the same eras. And obviously they can't because they're
they have the unique name thing.
They have the unique name thing. But the idea is that you shouldn't really be able to run Anakin Skywalker and Luke Skywalker in the same Strike Force, which you can.
Yeah.
You just can't obviously run Leia Bouche with Anakin.
Yeah.
And that's really your only limitation. And I wonder if they moved more towards, hey, you can play, this era in your Strike Force, but that's it. The only issue is that right now there's basically just Vader and the Inquisitors in that sort of in-between era. And Obi too. So it'd be, all right, here's a list that doesn't even work for a whole Strike Force.
Not until Rebels comes, because they're in that era.
Good point.
Yep.
So at least we have something in that era on the books for sometime 2024.
Man, I'm hyper crossing my fingers that Spectre Cell doesn't break yet another day.
I don't think Spectre Cell is going to break it because this game just works in a fundamentally different way.
We say that. Who knows?
Okay,
Ezra's dumb.
I did, for those who know, Ezra in Imperial Assault was just super busted. I just finished painting my terrain, and I did put a big Ezra sucks graffiti tag on one of the buildings, because Ezra does suck.
Ezra's so dumb. He's so good. All right, my favorite thing right now I was going to say Imperial Assault, in Shatterpoint, is Ahsoka Dooku, because it is just my jam. It is not quite as much my jam as... So when I played Imperial Assault, I played this list called The Box, which, for those of you who played Imperial Assault, the core was MHD, Han, Solo, C-3PO, and Gideon, which, I mean, C-3PO and Gideon is just kind of a given.
For those of you who don't play IA, it would be if you were a blue Magic player and you played an Imperial Assault list.
It is just hyper control. MHD's thing is people didn't think he was super good, and he's not in a lot of ways, because he is not doing any damage. What he would do is he would heal damage, right, off of your guys. So what you do is you have Han, who is the worst figure to attack in the game, and you put him with MHD. And so then, like, now they can't really... It was just a very hyper control list. Ahsoka Dooku is like that in a lot of ways. The list only works. I feel like this is kind of cheating, because the list only works because Jango and Magnus are so insanely busted.
Yeah. This is something that I've been saying, is that it turns out that you can just run anything next to the Dooku box.
Yep.
And it'll feel great.
Yeah, it feels awesome.
Because, like, it will give them breathing room to do stuff. It'll give them force to do stuff.
Yep.
Like, it is... The Dooku box is the best pairing, I think, for... like 70% of squads in the game.
Well, we ranked Dooku so high because on paper he's actually worse than a lot of the A rank primaries.
Yeah.
And just in terms of what he physically is doing.
Yeah.
But the fact that he pairs so well with so many lists is what I think elevated him to that next level. Is just he pairs with everybody.
Yeah, he's just... What's fun about Ahsoka Dooku is that the Dooku box is like its own thing, and it's an incredible thing. But what Ahsoka does is she brings this incredible amount of control where you look at her, and when I first played her, I'm like, oh, she is not doing enough damage. Like, Ahsoka's not good, and I was kind of sad. But then you realize, you're like, oh, well, if you have Ahsoka Dooku and Ahsoka... that just does this force amplification in terms of your defense that makes it very punishing for your opponent to attack, and it just rewards really skilled play. And it's just very fun. And Ahsoka, it makes me happy that Ahsoka is good in that capacity. So that's what I really like. Okay, that's it. We love everyone. Have an awesome Thanksgiving. Talk to you later.